Today I want to recognize some actions in my home state. Last week, Maine became the 5th state in the country to embrace marriage equality. Same-sex couples live all over our state in loving, committed relationships, raising families and growing old together. Yet they have not been afforded the rights and responsibilities that come with marriage.
The gay community is fighting for this, and it will open up a lot of other ways of thinking for people.
Marriage is about respect and honor and commitment, and most of all, love.
That's it. I'm fighting for gay rights because it's who I am.
The way that our cultures have defined marriage has changed so drastically over the course of human history. You know, the origins of what we view as a marriage contract, their origins are in a property transfer from a father to a husband. And then the concept of marriage became one that was a religious piece. And so the church was the place in which marriage was sanctioned. And so we've gone from a transfer of property to a religious institution to the reality of how our society views marriage in this day and age of, two adults, in a partnership, in a relationship with, other aspects of their family lives. And so I think that our concept of marriage really hasn't changed that greatly, and yet the way that it's sort of viewed, the way that it's processed in our culture has changed drastically.
If what you're trying to provide is that two people who have committed to live their lives together, who are willing to suffer all of the impositions that we put on two people who are through right and wrong and thick and thin and sickness and in health and all the other things that we ask of heterosexual couples. If same-sex couples are willing to do the same thing, then why can't they be married?
So I'm Executive Director of Equality Maine, and Equality Maine is Maine's largest, actually Maine's only, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender political advocacy organization. We've been around since 1984, and as Executive Director, I oversee all the programs and all the staff and all the fundraising in order for us to reach our mission, which is to win full equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in Maine. So in the beginning of 2006, a coalition of organizations led by Equality Maine and another organization called GLAD, which is Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders, and we convened a marriage roundtable in the beginning of 2006 with the goal of eventually winning marriage equality in Maine. So we trained about 350 volunteers and put them in 86 polling places across the state of Maine, most of which were in relatively rural and conservative towns. And our goal was we gave all the volunteers postcards to sign. And the postcards basically said, yes, I support marriage equality, and I would like my legislator to vote for marriage equality if a bill comes up in the session. By 1 o'clock, we had hit 10,000 signatures. By the end of the day, we had gathered over 33,000 postcards from voters who signed in support of marriage equality. Heading into 2009, we did agree that we would go forward. We felt our chances to pass marriage in the legislature were pretty good. We knew we needed to start with a sponsor who was going to be an appealing sponsor for other legislators to support. So we didn't really want a sponsor of the bill who lived in, for instance, Portland, because people just assume legislators who live in Portland are going to support marriage equality. So we were looking for a legislator. We actually wanted a senator versus someone from the House. And we decided that Senator Dennis Damon would be the ideal sponsor.
And I was actually kind of wondering why they were telling me that they were thinking of having this bill introduced. And so after I had said that's nice, they said, and oh, by the way, we would like you to sponsor it. So I said, well, let me think about that, if you will. Give me the night. And so I thought about it that evening. I thought about a lot of things, about same-sex marriage and equality and discrimination and what's right and what isn't, in my mind. And came back to them the next day and said that I would be willing to sponsor it.
Same-sex couples are deserving of the same rights and responsibilities that heterosexual couples, that other sex couples are granted when they can legally marry. There are legal protections, there are protections for inheritance rights, there are hospital visitation rights, there are in actuality 1,138 federal rights and responsibilities that are granted to married couples that same-sex couples who are not given the legal right to marry do not have access to.
Most public hearings are held at the State House in committee rooms. They knew that there was going to be far too many people at this committee, at this legislative hearing, in order to hold it in the State House, so they moved it to the Augusta Civic Center, which is actually, so that you know, we have a history of having public hearings on LGBT issues at the Civic Center because so many people attend. And so it was on April 22nd in 2009, and we worked really, really hard to get a lot of people there, and we asked all our supporters to wear red so that we would be visible. And so on the day of the hearing, opened up the Civic Center, and in walks, well, there was about 4,000 people who were there, and we outnumbered them 4 to 1.
I'm here today because of a conversation I had last June when I was voting. A woman at my polling place asked me, "Do you believe in equality for gay and lesbian people?" I was pretty surprised to be asked a question like that. It made no sense to me. Finally, I asked her, "What do you think I voted for at Omaha Beach?"
We delivered amazing, heart-wrenching testimony with a sea of, 4,000 supporters dressed in red. It was just a phenomenal hearing. And in fact, the Senate President at the time, Libby Mitchell, said it was one of the most historic public hearings ever in the state of Maine.
When the final votes were taken, the House did pass it relatively easily, but the Senate, being more evenly divided, Democrats and Republicans, the debate went on and on. Madam President said, "We're here to see the governor." And she said, "We have a bill that the legislature has just passed that we want to deliver to the governor." And so I'm handing the bill to the governor. I think it was reported to me that in a half an hour or so, he had actually signed the bill.
So our celebration was short, which we knew it would be, because in Maine there is a provision in the Constitution that allows citizens to gather signatures to put out to ballot anything that the legislature has passed. So they collected their signatures and we went immediately into a referendum campaign.
I can't abide by a group of people or even a single person being carved out and not being allowed to have the rights that I have or that we have collectively as a society. I don't think that one should be able to sit by and say, well, that's okay, because after all, there's only a few of them, or there's only one of him, or one of her, so we can do that. That's wrong. It's inherently wrong. It's wrong to the core, and if we allow that, then I think we are wrong, and I think that society in general suffers for it. It's fair, it's right, and it's time.